We are ready. The tax ahead. We are more than ready.
We are your home of all things credible, factual, and all times balanced. AYV.
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 Not a good thing for a country heading to elections. People appear to have so many bottled up grievances. Many people look so agitated and they are aggrieved by their poor living conditions. They are not happy with the way the government is giving people jobs on competitive process. Our security is very fragile. Crime is on the rise. The other day, we received reports of people who had been found wounded in the provinces. We want to think it's an act of robbery, but we're also worried about the deteriorating security in the country, Elisa said. Now, on August 10th of 2022, hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Freetown and some parts of the north, protesting against inflation and the rising cost of living, according to some of the protesters. The protests grew violent at times. Graphic images and video of battered and seriously injured protesters, including dead security personnel and members of the public, were seen on social media. Security forces were also seen firing guns at citizens. Vice President Dr. Mohamed Julde Jallo declared a nationwide curfew on the Wednesday at 3 p.m. local time, while President Julius Maada Bio was out of the country. Now, the impartiality of the Sierra Leone police is once again being called into question with a recent report from Amnesty International, European Union, and the United States Embassy. Tonight, we're taking a look at the state of security in Sierra Leone, 2023 elections, peace and violence. My name is Samuel Wise-Bangura, and this is AYV on Sunday. But following the violent protests on August 10th this year, President Julius Maada Bio for the two giant APC and SLPP.
There are no protests in all the parts of the country, including
in Liberia, and now he finds the back of the net.
And one honorable member.
Right, good evening and a warm welcome to AYV on Sunday channel. All right, good evening and a very warm welcome to AYV on Sunday. Today we are gauging the state of security in Sierra Leone ahead of the 2023 elections, peace and violence. You can also follow us on DSTV channel 399 on Radio FM 101.7 and on local channel 33. You also have the opportunity to be part of the conversation. Move over to our AYV News Facebook page. Drop your comments, drop your questions. We would always find time to go through some of them. But as always, we solicit your views, but please, and please, tailor them to the issues being discussed. No personality attack, no comments that would provoke violence. So please, just tailor them to the issues being discussed and contribute meaningfully to making the conversation a very civil one. Here with me, as always, I bring up a star-studded panel of people who are in touch with the issues to have every shade of opinion on the topics we're always discussing here. From the Ministry of Information and Communication, I have one of the strategic communicators, Imran Sila. Good evening and welcome to the show, Imran.
Thanks for having me. Good evening, Samuel.
All right, I have the country director for Amnesty International, Solomon Subandi. Good evening and welcome to the show, Solomon. All right. I also have with me from the Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion, Philip Buna, who's the Director of Conflict Prevention. Philip, good evening and welcome to the show. All right. I'm going to start off with you, Solomon, for obvious reasons. The Amnesty International just released a report, and that report is quite indicting of government efforts 7 months after the August 10th protest. The findings are quite damning to the states. The security Sila said that Sierra Leone security is fragile, noting that people were aggrieved and seemingly waiting for an
and probe the business side of the polls.
Who's buying whose vote? And why you should be concerned?
We will assemble all the experts shaping the conversation.
Before, during, and after the elections.
We are ready. tax ahead. We are more than ready.
We are your home of all things credible, factual, and all times balanced. AYV,
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 AYV.
AYV.
Sila said that Sierra Leone security is fragile, noting that people were aggrieved and seemingly waiting for an opportunity to be violent. Based on how people react violently to any simple provocation, you can tell that the levels of depression and trauma are high, and people seem to be waiting for the slightest aggravation to become violent. This is not a good thing for a country heading to elections. People appear to have so many bottled up grievances. Many people look so agitated, and they are aggrieved by their poor living conditions. They are not happy with the way the government is giving people jobs on competitive process. Our security is very fragile. Crime is on the rise. The other day, we received reports of people who had been found wounded in the provinces. We want to think it's an act of robbery, but we're also worried about the deteriorating security in the country, Elisa said. Now, on August 10th of 2022, hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Freetown and some parts of the north, protesting against inflation and the rising cost of living, according to some of the protesters. The protests grew violent at times. Graphic images and video of battered and seriously injured protesters, including dead security personnel and members of the public, were seen on social media. Security forces were also seen firing guns at citizens. Vice President Dr. Mohamed Julde Jallo declared a nationwide curfew on the Wednesday at 3 p.m. local time, while President Julius Maada Bio was out of the country. Now, the impartiality of the Sierra Leone police is once again being called into question with a recent report from Amnesty International, European Union, and the United States Embassy. Tonight, we're taking a look at the state of security in Sierra Leone, 2023 elections, peace and violence. My name is Samuel Wise-Bangura, and this is AYV on Sunday. But following the violent protests on August 10th this year, President Julius Maada Bio for the two giants, APC and SLPP.
There are no protests in all the parts of the country, including
in Liberia, and now he finds the back of the net.
And one honorable member.
Right, good evening and a warm welcome to AYV on Sunday on channel. All right, good evening and a very warm welcome to AYV on Sunday. Today we are gauging the state of security in Sierra Leone ahead of the 2023 elections, peace and violence. You can also follow us on DSTV channel 399 on Radio FM 101.7 and on local channel 33. You also have the opportunity to be part of the conversation. Move over to our AYV News Facebook page. Drop your comments, drop your questions. We would always find time to go through some of them. But as always, we solicit your views, but please, please, and please tailor them to the issues being discussed. No personality attack, no comments that would provoke violence. So please just tailor them to the issues being discussed and contribute meaningfully to making the conversation a very civil one. Here with me, as always, I bring a star-studded panel of people who are in touch with the issues to have every shade of opinion on the topics we're always discussing here. From the Ministry of Information and Communication, I have one of the strategic communicators, Imran Sila. Good evening and welcome to the show, Imran.
Thanks for having me. Good evening, Samuel.
All right, I have the country director for Amnesty International, Solomon Subandi. Good evening and welcome to the show, Solomon. All right, I also have with me from the Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion, Philip Buna, who's the Director of Conflict Prevention. Philip, good evening and welcome to the show. All right, I'm going to start off with you, Solomon, for obvious reasons. The Amnesty International just released a report, and that report is quite indicting of government efforts 7 months after the August 10th protest. The findings are quite damning to the states, the security apparatus, and all of that. So just paint us a brief picture of that very report, and how did you arrive at the findings?
We are all aware of those things. What is wrong in terms of violence as citizens and even the destruction of property. And so, sometime in November, a team of researchers came to Sierra Leone together with the Amnesty staff, and we did an oral interview with a lot of these persons, including witnesses, relatives of deceased persons, some government officials, civil society organization activists, etc., etc. It was really like an oral testimony. And when you read the report, it's all about alleged, but this is information gathered from people. And so we produced a press release on that. And we brought out some of the key issues, including especially the issue of the role of the police. But again, before really coming to the real issue of the report,
right,
the fact that I'm looking at the role of the media in terms of how do they look at news. We expect the media to be very professional in the way they relate with the public in terms of news. We expect the media to analyze the news and to give a balanced and objective view to the public for them to understand. The media should not make the news. Unfortunately, in our case, we saw that it was the media that was making the news, especially like the press. You know, we saw headlines that were a bit scary. One of the newspapers, like the Forum newspaper, had a caption: "Amnesty rubbishes Sierra Leone government human rights records." To me, they have missed the point. Critical issues we are raised in that report. So we are expecting the media to look at some of those pictures. Mark you, 6 police officers were killed. The nature in which they were killed is a cause for concern.
Right.
And up to 27 protesters were equally killed. What led to that? Okay, we look at even the role of the police. What's the relationship between the citizens and the police? Mark you, I was in this country when we had the Civil War, and I was involved. I'm sharing this testimony because I saw how police officers were targeted by the rebels. They were brutally killed. On August 10, we saw how some of the protesters attacked the police and how some of them were brutally killed. What message are we learning from that in terms of the relationship between citizens and the police? And I'm not staying in the eastern part of the country. I'm staying here at the fees. But colleagues and friends who are staying in the eastern part, who saw what I could say, why the citizens were...
I'm afraid I have to hold you there. I think we're having a little glitch with your microphone. Let's allow the technician fix it, and then we'll allow you to continue your submission. Solomon, let's quickly take this break, and the technician will get that sorted. Sierra Leone decides when it breaks at the polling stations. We are your first and most reliable witnesses. We deliver a crisp and concise as usual.
With our modern broadcasting equipment, seamless coverage all around.
From all angles and perspectives on TV, radio, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
We serve you with nothing but unadulterated information. For sure, we are your trusted election op. We will give you a round-the-clock update and a precise look and picture of the election.
We will uncover and probe the business side of the polls.
Who's buying whose vote and why you should be concerned.
We will assemble all the experts shaping the conversation.
Before, during, and after the elections.
We are ready. The tax ahead. We are more than ready.
We are your home of all things credible, factual, and all times balanced.
AYV,
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 AYV.
AYV.
When it breaks at the polling stations, we are your. Welcome back. We apologize for that technical glitch. I still have with me in the studio Philip Bona from the Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion, Solomon Sobandi from Amnesty
no they grow. Yeah, hey, boom, we want for no. Waiting make we country they go slow. Waiting making all they grow. Yes, so I can for sure. Yes, I can for sure them thing them way they make we know they grow. Then now we they die from. If I they try for go before, I beg do ya not make us slow? No. If I they try for raise the tempo, do ya not make am low? Yes, so if I dey try for go before, I beg do ya not make us slow? No. If I dey try for raise the tempo, do ya not make am low? Yes, so before they do them thing now we go make we gladdy, thing now we go make we happy, thing now we go make we country laddie daddy. So we go live in unity. Yes, so before they do them thing now we go make we gladdy, thing now we go make we happy, thing now we go make we country laddie daddy. So we go live in harmony. Yes, so don't before do them thing now we go make we smarter, thing now we go make we stronger, thing now we go make we nation last much longer. So we life them go better. Yes, so but we for left them thing now we go make we scatter, thing now we go bring palava, thing now we go make we nation well panambara, make we people scatter.
Scanty that you talk about.
Thing them like half a flavor plava, political party wahala. Thing them we go make we agba, them put we country pan yakba. Sing along say hey bo, we want for no. Waiting make we country they go slow. Waiting making all they grow. Yes, so I can for sure. Yes, I can for sure them thing them way they make we know they grow. Say now we did that, yes, so make we show them thing now we go make we kick po, thing now we go make we country go before. Mama, yes, so thing now we go make we grow, thing now we go make we left for go slow, make baby gladdy for Bobo show. Alright, so if I perform, me on perform. You say for gladdy for watch you watch. If I sing, me on sing. You say for gladdy for dance you dance. Before they do them thing now we go make we gladdy, thing now we go make we happy, thing now we go make we country laddie daddy. So we go live in unity. Yes, so before they do them thing now we go make we gladdy, thing now we go make we happy, thing now we go make we country laddie daddy. So we go live in harmony.
This was why
yes, so sing along.
Even with the police, but again in that press release they said they cannot mount a press release because the special committee will doing that. But maybe for their own records, how did the 6 police die? Is it out of gunshot wounds? Is it out of some other causes? If it's from gunshot, who shot the police? If it's from civilians, how did they get the guns? Where are the guns? So that raises the alarm for him, the small arms committee, to mount up an investigation if they are saying that the 6 police who died of gunshot. So what we are saying, government needs to really do an in-depth investigation. And that's why we are happy that the special committee, but again, we have challenge with the special committee.
Which is?
One, we are happy that it was set up, but to date, we don't know where we are in the investigations. Have they completed? Do they have a draft report? They should be relating with the public to know where we are in the investigation. Mark you, we are a few months to elections, and we wanted to have the report, the recommendations, and how can we push government into action in terms of carrying out those recommendations.
Let me hear from Imran. As you asked about the report, I was reliably informed by members of the committee that they've completed the investigation, they've submitted the report, and it's left with government and to publish the report. But Imran, you've listened. I'm pretty sure you must have read the release put out by Amnesty International, and of course the police already had responded to a bit of it. First off, what does government make of that statement by Amnesty International?
Thank you again for the opportunity, Samuel. I've not only read the report, I brought a copy of the report with me. There are two elements, well, three now,
which are
based on the media involvement being raised. The first naturally has to be the 10th of August and what actually happened and the way in which the Amnesty reports have captured it. Second, which is germane to the first, right, and that it touches and concerns human rights. Because somehow, if you watch social media, there's a spin to it, which is our human rights record. The human rights record of this government, forgetting all of what we probably have accomplished together with the House of Parliament, I have to add, right? And that's bipartisan also. But then, you know, we'll come to that in a minute. If you look at the report, Samuel, it talks about people being interviewed, yeah? The first part was about someone being interviewed, a civilian. The second was another one being interviewed. The third was from a protester in Makeni who was interviewed on his own account. And then if you go to the final page, it says background. On the 10th August 2022, protests broke out in Freetown. Protests broke out in Freetown and other areas of the country amid mounting frustrations over the soaring cost of living. Some demonstrators called for President Bio to resign. Now, this I feel is very inaccurate. Very inaccurate.
In what sense?
It's a sort of placated way of explaining what actually happened. Protests broke out in Freetown.
Right.
No. And it clearly distorts what the facts are. Samuel, we were all in Sierra Leone on the 10th of August. We know what happened. These protests largely emanated from APC stronghold in Makeni, in Tonkolili, in Putloko, Waterloo, in the east end of Freetown, not in the west end of Freetown, not in Bo, not in Pujong, not in Kailao, not in Moyamba, you know, not in Cambia even. So clearly, there was a political tilt to it. Had Amnesty International, well, the actors here, had they done their job diligently, that should have been captured in the background. No, right? But they did not because...
To have blamed the opposition party for orchestrating that?
Just set the backdrop. Because if the backdrop, a backdrop cannot just be 3-4 lines. A backdrop has to be more than 3-4 lines because we know exactly. Just state it can't be. It could be anything, but not just in Freetown and other areas of the country, because we know that if what they were saying was cost of living, the cost of a bag of rice in Makeni is the same as the cost of rice in Bo. The cost of a bag of rice in Kamakwe is the same as a cost of rice, a bag of rice in Kailao, the same in Moyamba, the same in Kenema, the same in Pujong. But the inhabitants of those places clearly did not take to the streets, yeah? What we saw unfolded on the 10th of August is a mob action. And what do they say about mobs? It's a place where people go to forget their conscience, Samuel. People took to the streets on that day in those places.
What I would not want to do, there's a committee the government has set up already.
That report, like you said. I'm simply talking. I mean, we're talking now. It's about the reports, right? And what I think has been distorted, right? It is not factual at all. Number one. Second, my brother just mentioned amongst the many people they spoke to, right? I wish they could have spoken to the deceased police officers, the families of the deceased officers, and it should have been captured in the report, right? Because it is not just about what happened. I went to Kamakwe, Samuel. And it is also factual that the first person to die on that day was the police officer in the east end of Freetown. He was the first to lose his life. And that's on record. He was unarmed. He used to live at Dwazak Farm. I'm close to friends. I know friends who know the family very well and were very close to him. He was regarded as a pastor. Yeah. This was someone who, well, I don't know if he had a church, but that shows how religious he was. And on that day, he did not, he was unarmed, clearly just having a baton on him, trying to pacify the crowd. What happened? He was killed, right, by mobs looking to overthrow a government, claiming it was because of cost of living. And to the officer in Kamakwe, we went to Kamakwe, I think, a week after the incident on the 10th of August. This young man, who was dragged through the streets of Kamakwe, was actually living in Kamakwe, not only because of his police assignment, but he was married in Makini, have kids in Makini. So there were 3 attempts to pacify the crowd, young people, not to go into action. And when that failed, I'm coming. When that failed, Samuel, all the police officers were warned to be on their guard and to keep themselves safe. He said distinctly, and I got this from the stakeholders in Kamakwe, right? He said distinctly, look, Nami home this is home for me. I am not going anywhere. He went home to his wife and kids. He was dragged through the streets. So you didn't need, it's not rocket science to get those information and get them contained in this report. My point is...
So what I want to get from you, Solomon is there. Amnesty has gotten a reputation for putting out, and defending human rights and all of that. But saying that this report is not factual and the report is erroneous.
It could have been a lot more than what we're seeing, Samuel, right? And that cannot be disputed, number one. Second, right? I'm not blaming Amnesty International as an organization, yeah? Because we know they have a reputation, right? We know, right, that they're respected across the world, yeah? For the work that they have done and the work that they continue to do. But somehow, my sources tell me, because I spoke to a few people who were connected when the team came into Freetown to do the investigations and talk to people, some of what was said to them, right, from my source was clearly dismissed. Definitely not in this, definitely not captured in this report, definitely. And so it raises so many questions than the ones it has attempted to answer, which is, why was it not more thorough and detailed? I mean, I have a son who's 20. I can get him to do a more detailed report than what we have, frankly. Yeah? Just quickly, I can get them to do a more detailed report than what we have now. Right? It should be dispassionate, right? And
to the allegation or accusation of having published an erroneous and
it is not factual. It is not factual.
Solomon.
The point is the fact that it depends on who you meet and who you interview. And that's the response you get. And mark you.
But what Imran is saying here is that he has his sources. He spoke to some of his sources, and clearly some of the findings you did not publish.
Like which one?
So it's a skewed. So are you giving us a skewed report?
No, but ask you, which ones?
Okay, so did you talk to the families of the police officers killed?
No.
So could you not have done that? I mean, in the process of your investigation, could it not have been more thorough,
the point
right,
is,
and extensive?
The point is not interviewing the relatives of police officers does not skew the report. But a lot of other people, even like civil society activists, credible civil society activists, we cannot name them.
And that's not here also.
No, we cannot name them.
No, you could have.
But you were interviewed.
Yes.
And they gave you.
That's what you are saying. Yeah, yes.
No names were mentioned. Even
no, in fact, no.
You spoke to.
No.
No names were mentioned.
We cannot. No, we cannot. If a notable human rights activist name was mentioned in the initial draft, I said no, you cannot do that.
So let us.
You are exposing. No, but you cannot. Security? Well, yes, you cannot expose. Yes, you cannot expose because the point is about some of these issues is about the issue of confidentiality.
Right.
You know, in terms of your source and in research, that's very, very critical.
Yeah, but the contents could have been included in the report. So for every go to the second paragraph, your testimony of a father of a 22-year-old woman, right? A father, right? No name was mentioned. No. You could have spoken to families of deceased police officers without mentioning their names. It is just routine. That is what you do. You don't mention names, right? So why could it not have been more thorough and detailed, right?
But not
and factual.
I cannot understand. I mean, just not doing an interview with relatives of police does not
make the report to be skewed. No.
Well, but this
wait, are you in contention of what are the issues in the report that you are in contention of?
My problem is when you give a backdrop, say, that protest broke out in Freetown and other parts. Other parts we know, right? These are areas where you have more opposition support.
So you wanted the reports to have actually validated your claim.
Well, exactly. Not validate themselves.
So have validated your claim. I mean, as a government saying that
it is not my claim.
The protests were just from the opposition stronghold, orchestrated by the APC. It was an insurrection. Was that what you were looking for?
It is for the sanctity of their own reports. Right? When you write a report, it has to be balanced. Protests took place in opposition stronghold because that's what it is. That is what happened.
Don't you have supporters in enough?
Look,
as a party,
Samuel, we know exactly what happened. This is let us not be let us not pick our words. We know exactly what happened. In Kamakwe, in Makeni, in Putloko, and in the eastern part of Freetown. For the majority of Sierra Leone, including the Western, the majority of Sierra Leone was peaceful and quiet. People went about their daily business. And that has to be noted in the report. So granted,
that's what?
You can call it a protest against cost of living. But the cost of living in Makeni is no different from the cost of living in Moemba. It is no different from the cost of living in Pujaon. It is no different from the cost of living in Kainau. So how can it be considered a cost of living protest when, I mean, the same challenges that the people in Makeni are facing are the same challenges being faced by those in Bo? Right? So does it make sense to anybody that this was a protest for cost of living?
Again,
would it mean that, let's go back, when, say for example, in Makeni under Vianis by Kroma-led administration, that, I mean, government ministers would go to Makeni and people will be given handouts and all of that. That cushions their sufferings, which was never different from those in Bo and Kenema. And now that the tides have changed, the same?
No, look, I don't think so. I think it's down to bad politics, Samir. Yeah, because at the end of the day, people have challenges on a daily basis. We all do. Even for those of us who aren't.
Imran, you're my friend. In the situation where I'm broke, I have access to Imran. Imran, I'm broke, which is different from that. We have the same challenges, but I have a means of solving. Because I will call you, Imran. You say, okay, well, I don't get that. Yeah.
So you cannot limit your explanation to only those in the north. Right? People in the south and the east also have those same challenges and have no one to go to. Right? So they also would have had more than enough reason to come out on that day, but they did not. They did not because look, and those challenges did not go away the following day. It is still there. Right? This is something as a government that we have acknowledged and we have said, yes, we know that there are global circumstances.
So this report has been questioned.
It is not only being questioned, it is not only being questioned, Samuel. It has to be fair and balanced and more detailed, right? You cannot, I mean, you have seen the report, haven't you? Right? Look at the backdrop. What, 2.5 lines? Boy picking self age 20 now. Gam report for right and tell him for do a backdrop. It could do 20 lines. What 2 paragraphs? How can you do it 2.5 lines and you say this about
the Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion? I'm sure the commission was very much involved in arrangement to restoring peace and sanity in those parts that were affected by the Augustine protests. Lives were lost and all of that. What does the commission make of the report? Have you gone through the report? Is the commission okay with the report?
Well, yes, I went through the report. Well, to start with, thanks a lot for the invitation and to be part of this conversation. I personally know Amnesty International as a well-renowned, credible institution all over the world.
Absolutely.
And they've been doing excellent job, especially in crisis areas or when it comes to human rights abuses. They have track record of, you know, really standing up with victims, you know, whose human rights have been abused. That said, getting that report in my hands, with regard to the August 10 incident and the content of it by means of using a method of interviewing victims or relatives of victims. My first impression was, I mean, I'm speaking here as an individual, as Philip, was that they could have added, or they should have added some flesh to it. No doubt about it.
Flesh in what sense?
In the sense that I missed interviews presented here from other protagonists who also fell victim, who would have been also equally very important to capture in this report. That was actually what I thought. I said it, the content of it, the interview conducted definitely captures the victims or relatives of victims.
One-sided reports.
Yes, but you should have added, you know, some more information to it. I think I got that one. Then another thing was, I think the premise, you know, was not well, you know, highlighted. Why this report at this point in time? Now that we know there is a committee which has been set by His Excellency the President and is investigating the matter. And we are having such a report where you actually don't know the premise, which has not been well highlighted as to why this interview was conducted. I mean, I captured, you know, in the introductory part of it, you know, the reasons why the August 10, you know, incident took place, you know, poverty, marginalization, and so on and so forth. But it was not really like, I would see this as a premise, you know, to have such an interview based on this one-sided approach. Just like Mr. Sila said, it would have been better, you know, or advisable to conduct a broad-based and carpet interview of lots of individuals who were affected, starting from Kamakwe, and even beyond Kamakwe, even down to the areas which were not directly affected, to get a clear picture, a broader picture of whether the assertion that poverty, marginalization, and so many other things raised there we are the real root causes of the August 10 incident.
You know, the Amnesty International is not the only institution that has raised concerns over the August 10 elections. And of course, if you go to the EU report, the State of Human Rights report published by the United States Embassy, you will see there are also concerns raised from those institutions, those bodies, and these are credible bodies. So if the state is discrediting the report from Amnesty International saying it's one-sided, and Solomon mentioned that they only spoke to eyewitnesses and relatives of deceased and
government personnel
and government personnel
and civil society activists.
Right. So it means that the concerns are just the same. So as a commission now responsible, that permanent infrastructure responsible for consolidating our peace, what should we focus on? 7 months after the August 10 crisis, government instituted a committee. The committee, credible information that they've completed. The committee has completed its work and submitted reports to government, just waiting for government to do the publication, and then findings would be discussed. What do you think should we focus on now? I'm looking at how fluid the situation can get and how fragile the state is ahead of the June polls. We have about 91 or 90 days to the polls.
Yeah. Well, anyway, to get back to your previous question, I mean, here in no way discrediting the efforts of Amnesty International with regard to the report, published. Definitely, the content of it and the methodology applied there is unquestionable. I just thought they could have, done some more, to have a comprehensive report. Sending the peace messages, through, jingles, just like AYV is doing, if people take it or they don't take it, we definitely know you have bad apples in each society. I mean, it's not only Sierra Leone. I mean, when we read some of these reports, it seems as if it's only in Sierra Leone we are having such difficulties. No, even in Europe, you also have, when it comes to political campaign, right? There is no political cohesion there until the winner comes out, even in the United States. So, I mean, Nigeria had their own recently. So what we are trying to do as a commission, we continue encouraging them, we continue, sensitizing the stakeholders, and also even committing, and we continue encouraging politicians to commit themselves to peace. Like if we have such an event, it will all boil down to committee, signing that they really, are ready, to conduct, to really run those elections without, for example, instrumentalizing those boys who in one way or the other, see this as an opportunity to get money, when politicians throw money at them. But really, actually, these boys, personally, they are peaceful. I mean, running through Lumley, where I usually drive to go to work, I will see all those big posters from the various politicians, and those boys will stand there wiping them, cleaning them, but you never see them have any clash. You never see them have any dispute, but rather they will just continue asking for, some amount of money, right? So it's also a way of making money. So the politicians know that, and then they will use these boys, give them money, and this money definitely is being misused by taking drugs or whatever, especially when the euphoria is so high during elections. So what we are doing, we still embark on really seriously propagating the messages. We develop new messages. Every week, new messages come, and also in collaboration with your television, I mean, with AYB, we have Saturdays. Every platform. Saturday, we are always there, where we also use the Peace platform to send the messages. So if people are ready to really, really, really comply, people are really, really ready to be peaceful, then they can be peaceful. But if they are not ready, then they cannot be ready. The only thing is, let's see how we can, harvest those bad apples out of this system. Well, it's really
is it about the bad apples, or is it about the present state of affairs, in the sense that many peace experts have submitted to us that it is very rare for peace to be consolidated in a state that is being ravaged by abject poverty. And for us as a nation, this is monumental. So how then do we address some of those fundamentals that would help ease the tension, the aggravation? Many people are agitated in Sierra Leone simply because of the state of affairs. And this is not just happening now.
Yes.
And it's not just happening in Sierra Leone at the same time, because we've also seen other countries, people have taken to the streets, they've protested against some of these things. So what should be done to help you do your work as a commission?
Well, I think what is key here, this is my observation, it's still the social media. Those guys there, especially in the diaspora, sending all sorts of, messages, inciting those young people. If we can, if the government or the people of Sierra Leone will be ready to say, no, we don't listen to them, this is already a plus point. If you look at August 10th, up to August 10th, 8th, 9th, 10th, the kind of messages coming into Sierra Leone from the diaspora, was also a factor that led to this, to the mayhem, to the chaos, to the disaster we saw, which eventually became a disgrace to this country. And not only that, we also dropped, you know, I mean, 1 or 2 points if you look at the peace index.
Right.
So this is where we have to start. Those out there, they should know that it's the one Sierra Leone they came from, you know, which we all belong to. And if they are sending hate messages because they want to make political capital gains, you know, or just even deliberately just destroy the peace, the 20 years peace we'll be enjoying, then of course, Samuel, it will be very difficult, no matter which commission, no matter which institution or which government is there, this problem will always be there. So what we do is education. That's one key area, to educate the people, you know, about the essence of peace. Mind you, that's how Rwanda started in '94. Hate speeches and what have you. And it ended up with, with a massive genocide in that area. So what we say here is really everybody, father, mother, AYV, SLBC, and what have you, who should start really, you know, working on this piece. Just like you said, it's fragile, but we can consolidate it.
All right.
But with everybody on board.
Quickly, Solomon, let me hear you. You know, you frowned at a newspaper crafting its headline that Amnesty International rubbishes government's human rights records. Now, fundamental human rights of people were violated clearly on August 10th, especially the rights to life. I mean, civilians were killed, police officers were killed, so their rights to life were definitely violated clearly. And that's a cause for alarm. That's a cause for concern. Many people look forward to us, improving our democratic credentials, upholding our human rights track records. So when you frown at things like that, and what the issues happening on ground are going against the spirit of consolidating our democracy, the spirit of upholding our human rights track records and all of that, then the tracks being laid are not good enough. How then do we address all of that, being an institution that advocates for human rights, and see how you can protect those rights?
From the angle of the media?
Yes. No, generally.
Well, again, let's start with the media. This is a wake-up call for the Independent Media Commission to ensure that they do what I call media surveillance, because some newspapers have started predicting the outcome of the election, and that's dangerous. Bring the issues because of ABC, they will think this party is going to win because of this and that.
That is done everywhere in the world.
I know, but the danger there is it's everywhere. But you look at the level of understanding of our people. If you continuously present to them the picture that this party, because of this, and they are going to win, and at the end of the day they don't win, it's going to undermine the peace. People will start interpreting that the election has been hijacked or stolen. This is what I'm saying, the type of messages, even the media, in terms of even discussions. How do you ensure that you balance the report? What we wanted the media to have done with the report was to really look at the issue of the violence. And how do we control that? The police were targeted, and this is where some of us are coming from, beyond every other thing. The 6 police officers were killed. And as I was saying, the military was equally involved in this. But people were appreciating the military than the police. How did the police die?
So what's the level of the excessive force infused by the Sierra Leone police?
In fact, and this is where, again, the Sierra Leone police is missing the point, because I read from their release that we are not sympathizing with the police officers that were killed and even their relatives. That's not the point. Somewhere you are in the media world. You look at the standoffs between civilians and the police all over the world. At the end of the day, who is severely criticized? It's the police. This is because when you look at international human rights law, it is the state
that signs conventions and treaties on behalf of its people. And so the state has that obligation to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights. So whosoever is a state agent carries that responsibility as a state. That is why anywhere in the world, as long as there's a stand-up, like even Iran, the issue of Iran, several police officers were killed and even citizens, but at the end of the day, it's the police officers that were criticized for being heavy-handed. And this is the global practice. Again, what we are saying is that we would have loved the police to do an independent investigation in terms of the cause of death of these police officers. How did they die?
Would the police have come out with a credible, with balance and a fair report?
They are investigating their own type. They are undertaking their own investigation because at the end of the day, it's not about the civilians as such.
If the preliminary reports that were put out or press releases that were put out by the police, I mean, it was just all about the police, nothing about the civilians. So,
no, but if about the police,
would you have trusted
a
credible report from the police?
Yes, because if about the police, what they wanted to know, because we know that the police were really key and that the focus really have been on the police to know how did they die, because there are a lot of speculation going around.
So this comes back to Amnesty International, like Iman was saying. Would you not have spoken to them to have also understood their own side, what's really led from their families, perhaps the states they are in, following those deaths?
We interviewed the Inspector General of Police and he gave us their own side of the story.
Is it being captured?
Yes, it's captured there in terms of what he gave, but the response was a bit more skewed in terms of access to lawyers. But we interviewed him on the police, and he also gave us the issue of really what happened. But again, we would have loved an in-depth analysis of really what killed those 6 police officers. Did they die out of gunshot wounds or some other missiles, stones, sticks, what? It's all speculation. What really killed those 6? We had some information that some civilians had guns. How did they get those guns? Did they use those guns to kill the police? It's all speculation. So this is what we are saying. Perhaps the special committee will give us perhaps an in-depth analysis in terms of someone, because
would Amnesty International, would you not have waited for that committee to have published its report? I'm asking this question because you take a good look at the situation. Government is blaming opposition politicians for what happened. Opposition politicians are blaming government for what happened. And then Amnesty International is an independent body coming out with a statement that is also speculative, that is not conclusive, that is based on testimonies of the people who you feel witnessed, the people who you feel are victims because their loved ones were killed in the process. So is that not also just confusing? And
it is not. But the report from the special committee is going to either rubbish Amnesty's findings or even support what Amnesty has said. This is why we are waiting for that report, because we definitely lose, because we want to know the cause of death.
I love the way, by the way, how you use the word rubbish Amnesty International and you're criticizing the media's headline. Go ahead.
No, because according to the government spokesman, he says the report is not even credible. So it's going to be rubbish. But what we are saying is that, our report is like a trigger in terms of the fact that government is not going to, perhaps, I hope, very shortly they're going to release that report. And let's see where the variance is in terms of our own report, in terms of our own findings, and the special committee's findings, whether we agree or disagree. And that is where the argument.
But where does this put us for the June polls? Because for many peace experts, I mean, it's becoming worrisome with the heightened tensions, political tensions, politicians using the tribal cards, the religious cards, the regional cards to just gain political power at the detriment of Sierra Leone and Sierra Leoneans.
I quite agree with you. I mean, to me, it's a worrying trend, and especially with the August 10, we are speculating that we really need to bring everybody on board if we don't want to see a repeat of August 10, even something more serious than August 10, because of the way things are going. And you have said it rightly. The other day, one proposed candidate was talking about religious support. I mean, so you start seeing the utterances. Again, we appreciate PPRC. You know, they are really trying to do their job, but it's going to be very, very challenging in terms of how do really people go about either canvassing or campaigning. I mean, in terms of really reading out what development agenda do you have for the country, different from what we are now seeing. That should be the mantle of or the mantra of some of these politicians. That is what we want to see. But I mean, we still see divisive utterances, and this is not good for our democracy. It's not good for the peace of this country. It's worrying. It's a very worrisome situation. Let me say the least.
Imran, you know, I have listened to many speeches from the president condemning violence outrightly, calling for peace, calling for a tranquil society, for a society that, I mean, is united and all of that. But from what is happening at the political front, from both the APC and the SLPP, their actions speak otherwise. So how do we get to the June polls, the June 24th polls, with a society that is enlightened enough to ensure that peace and peaceful elections would lead to credible, fair, and the hearing of voices of many Sierra Leoneans to the ballot box?
Well, I think, firstly, I suspect PPRC have met political parties, and my understanding is there's a framework, there's a template with all political parties in terms of the way they conduct business leading up to the elections, a commitment to peace, commitment to national cohesion, making sure that as political leaders in our various ways and various communities, we lead by example and not do anything that would sort of throw spanners. We all have a responsibility at the end of the day. The elections are only going to go one way, right? Someone will win and someone is not going to win. But life goes on.
Right.
And so once we have that in mind, you understand you have a responsibility to now come back as a political party and craft your message. Your message has got to be on the issues. What would you like people to hear? What are the issues you'd love to address if you've been given the opportunity at all levels? Yeah. And whatever those concerns are, lay it out in the form of a policy. Go out and explain to people. And I think once that is done, we will be fine between now and the elections and even beyond. Now, if I can, there's another element also to it.
Which is?
Because in as much as we would like political parties, right, to conduct business in the right and appropriate way, you're still going to have those who would choose to do otherwise.
Right.
Yeah. And that is where the question of the law comes in. Yeah. I expect the police and all other law enforcement agencies to be up to their game, right? As we go into the elections, they should be bringing in their A game, making sure that anybody found wanting of anything unlawful or for stoking fire, right? Not literally, right, in communities or disturbance or chaos, that individual will be brought to book, because only then do you send the right message and the right signal that these elections are not going to be violent, right? And we would like to conduct it in a very peaceful way.
How would government ensure, Imran? You know, you go back to the follow-up report from the European mission. It tells you that significant trust in the election management bodies, the judiciary, the police. I mean, it's going down. It's going down significantly. And these bodies, especially the judiciary, the police, these are the sucker of hope, if we should put it. The judiciary is there to ensure that the remedy situations using the law. But if these bodies have been accused as being used or politically influenced by the states, and it operates well, the politicians, then how would the rule of law come into force and in a manner that people do not get to see it as you being selective in the implementation and interpretation of the laws?
So, I mean, firstly, let me say on the issue of the police and the fact that there is low trust in the police force.
Right.
Look, I was reading a report, and that it has nothing to do with Sierra Leone. It's about the United States and their police. It's at a very low point from state to state. I mean, they have those issues. So,
right.
I'm not saying it is something we should celebrate, right? But if for anything, I think the Sierra Leone police can take solace from the fact that they are not alone in terms of having to live up to expectation, right? Because I mean, it's the same when there's low trust in the police in the United Kingdom in the way they relate to Black people or people of color. I mean, it's the same for the United States. It's the same for any developed country, right? As to how they deal with Black people or just general policing. So there are challenges, but does it mean that we don't have those good moments, right? It is because also often when something bad happens, right, or when it doesn't look too good, that is what comes to the fore, right? Ultimately, the police have a responsibility, and I'm sure they will take their responsibility seriously. On the second part, which has to do with the judiciary, now let me just say, there has been a lot of accomplishments with the judiciary in nearly 5 years of this administration, and that cannot be disputed at all, right? It comes back to the initial question, yeah, which has to do with human rights, yeah, and what we have accomplished in 5 years. In 2015, a survey was done as per how many judges do we have, given the number of citizens we have in this country, which is about 7 million. The African average should be 1 to 33,000. In 2015, we were 145,000 to one judge, yeah? And that tells you a lot as to why cases were left forever, unattended, and all the rest of it. You go to ordinary Mamiko's case, if you not take it on a UDEPA for 4 years. The record in 2020 is quite different, and that shows how much progress this government has made. So access to justice, I mean, in terms of its improvement, has moved from 30 to 70%. High court criminal sessions in places never heard of in Pujon, Tonkolili, Bonth, Cambia, Koinadugu, Kailau.
Does access guarantee justice?
A total number, but it's part of it. It's part of it. It's a process in itself. Ultimately, I'm sure your question is suggesting in terms of, well, what those conclusions are, what the rulings are, right? But you first of all need to be able to have the access, right, before you get to those conclusions. So a total of 800 cases were listed in 2020, of which 477 were completed, which is about 60% percentage-wise.
Are these political cases? Because
no.
I mean, you get to talk about all of these things when the politicians, when they are on the other side, the judiciary, the police, they do not function because they are being captured by the ruling class. I mean, these accusations were there when APC was in power. They are still there now when SLPP is in power. So how do we get a system that works for the state? So at the end of the day, when the SLPP is in opposition, SLPP will be able to trust these state institutions that when things do not go right, they are able to take issues to the court, and they trust the court to do and deliver justice.
So the data and statistics that I'm giving you are ones that have been acknowledged even by my international partners. Yeah, the judiciary has got support from the United Kingdom, European Union, and all the rest of it in terms of making sure that they scale. So these accomplishments are accomplishments that they also recognize. EU defeat and all the rest of it, yeah, and therefore it shows that it is not how it used to be in 2015 or 2014 or 2013. This Chief Justice is making deliberate and determined effort. I mean, I don't hold any brief for him. I shouldn't be saying this, but these are public information. They're public knowledge, right? It boils down to what the vision is of His Excellency the President. It's on human rights. It touches and concerns human rights. So on the issue of human rights, Samuel, I don't know, in your living memory, when was the last time you had any government or a sitting president touting his accomplishments over a period of 5 years, or let's say 10 years, a two-term period? When was the last time? Never, ever. Not since the formation of this state called Sierra Leone at independence. Now, We have so many things to point to. In one term, as a government, we can talk about access to justice. We can talk about the gender law. We can talk about the abolition of the death penalty. Interestingly enough, in the United States, they still have the death penalty in place in certain states. Right? We can talk about the freedom of, 1965 Part 5, and many more. Even if you want to talk about access to education, right? That is also enshrined in the Constitution of Sierra Leone, 1991 Constitution of San Amende. So we've done a lot when it comes to human rights issues.
Continue to stay with me, Imran. There will come a time when we'll ask you to come and put your report card on the table. That's not what we're discussing here tonight. But allow me to run through some messages quickly. Jibrila says, Samuel, I have big issue with you. Why do you want to dress the truth of by saying that the president he's saying he wants peace, blah blah blah, when he is out there preaching hate? Okay. Francis T.Y. Kroma is saying, for any reports that will be published from any institutions now, it is a doctored one. We believe the report of Amnesty International and the US. John Kano is saying, so what about Gento's religious hate speech? Okay, George Orwell is saying, Karim Koron, the problem with this administration is the lack of communication to the citizens, my friend. 7 months down the line and nobody knows what is going on with such an important report, when innocent citizens were gunned down and the corpses were not given to their families. Also, the US State Department, the EU have all released their reports about this same issue while the government kept quiet. Samuel, you're so biased and afraid to ask Imran that the president and first lady are talking about peace, but roaming around Sierra Leone preaching hate speech, but trying to bring the opposition in the picture. Interesting. Ronald Bresford Ignatius Georgetown is saying, when can many Sierra Leoneans remember a time Sierra Leone was economically prosperous? Most Sierra Leoneans have only experienced economic hardship in almost 62 years. When will there be a prosperous Sierra Leone for all? Oh, Salon. All right. Your port's not still functional. Interesting. Musa Kroma. Salon for, well, he's saying this government promised us, the citizens, that they would come and do well with the economy. Now we're still hearing blame game. Jungle Alive is saying the people will stand up against all these politicians until they get it right one day. Mohamed Fona is saying this is sad coming from you, Imran, comparing the behavior of our police to the US police. Paul Kanu is saying, like, seriously, Imran is civilizing and downplaying these gross human rights abuses by the government. This is absolutely terrible because una direct relatives not involved. Each and every single Salon person in life matters. Salon T. Usman is saying, one thing our politicians need to know is that one day Allah would judge them according to their works and ways. Musa Kuroma is saying, no rights for citizens. It's a big, okay, I'm not going to go through that word. Jibril Bangura is saying, until we get a credible opposition to put up a decent campaign to win over the hearts and minds of the people, the APC Tolombo haters cannot win enough votes in order to get to State House. Mohammed, we're tired of these statistics. You look at statistics that favor you and want to put the ones that do not favor you under the carpet. I'm going to take at most 5 more messages because of time. We have so many of them. Ronald Johnson is saying, when you have strong institutions, then you would have good governance. But when successive governments are in the habit of state capture, then this is what you get. Lawlessness and citizens taking the law into their hands. Do we have a neutral police force? We all know the answer to that. This guy, okay, I'm not going to go through that, I'm afraid. Mr. Presenter, Bonds does not have any police issue because Bonds town don't ever. Okay, that's not too clear. And I'm not sure any one of us mentioned Bonf anyway. Thanks to social media now, it will help to force our leaders to do the needful as time goes on. For far too long, our African leaders have been keeping us in the dark and taking us for granted. Even if APC wins, if the government does not take the citizens seriously, their own would be worse than you. What is happening now in Senegal is a wake-up call. You can even see in the US, they want to ban Komon-Tok. Joseph Josiah is saying that Samuel, you shouldn't read about. You would not read about airports not yet responding. Didn't you send your journalists at the airport yesterday? Well, the good thing you saw. You saw the report yesterday, so it's a good thing. Thank you. Imran, this now Ramadan month too. Please say, okay, I'm skipping that. Whether you like it or not, doctors, okay, we're not campaigning right now. When the Electoral Commission declares campaign periods, I know the politicians and the political parties are doing what they had to. But let me quickly bring Solomon. Now, with this report out and looking at the security and peace of Sierra Leone ahead of the June 24th polls, with this report,
hey, just a second. You know, say for subscribe now free. Plenty people who they watch here, they know they subscribe because someone feel say for subscribe, they need for pay money. If you not be known for no say for subscribe now free. But why for subscribe? If for subscribe for three main reasons.
Context where the nation went wrong, where politicians went wrong, where us the citizens went wrong, that at the end of the day led to the loss of lives on August 10.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, this is why in our press release, we are really pushing for a speedy conclusion of the work of the special committee so that they will come out with a report with recommendations, and us civil society will see how we run along with those recommendations, because we know that definitely it's like a pathway in terms of how do we really want to run the country in terms of consolidating the peace, because we continue to say that August 10 is a worrying trend. It's a wake-up call that things are not okay for the country, that the peace is fragile. Again, we want to even look at the relationship between the police and citizens. I mean, it's not rosary. And beyond criminality or criminals and the police, but if you do a public perception survey in terms of the relationship between citizens and the police, it's very, very low. He has said it perhaps even in other countries, but again, that's very worrying. We saw the way the police were attacked, 6 of them killed. I mean, and for some of them, they never had any weapon. Why were they killed? That sends a message that all is not well between the citizens and the police. Yeah. How do we have a national conversation on that?
I'm going to quickly hold you there, Solomon Sobandi. Just quickly, online, we've been joined by the National Publicity Secretary of the Opposition All People's Congress Party, Sidi Yaya Tunis. Sidi, good evening and welcome to AYV on Sunday.
Good evening, Samuel. Thanks for having me online.
We're discussing the state of security ahead of the June 24th polls and looking at peace and violence. And already we've seen the APC put out a statement following the aspirant for the SLPP's mayoral seat in Freetown, Mohammed Gento Kamara. What would the APC speak to in terms of peace, in terms of security, and free and fair elections at this point?
Thank you very much, Samuel. I mean, we have always stated our position and our commitment as far as it relates to making sure that we maintain peace, quiet, and national cohesion in this country. Several efforts have been made by the PPRC and the UNDP to ensure that we have cross-party dialogue on peace and national cohesion, and also having a sanitized campaign period as we get closer to the general elections in June. And we have made commitments towards that, and so far we have lived up to our commitments. It is, however, disturbing that we continue to see senior people, aspirants, officials of the Sierra Leone People's Party continue to make insightful statements, divisive statements that have the potential to not only create tribal and religious tensions, but to even cause chaos that may probably be uncontrollable, along tribal and religious line. And the statements by Gentle are the most offensive, most hateful, and most divisive statements I've heard from any aspiring candidate or even political party official for many, many, many years in this country. I mean, we have had issues, with tribal sentiments and tribal statements, but to, draw religion into it, something that we have enjoyed, the religious tolerance that we have enjoyed as a nation, for as long as this country has existed. I mean, it is unfortunate, it is troubling, especially when it was done in the house of worship, in a masjid, in the month of Ramadan, on the very first Friday in the holy month of Ramadan, a time when we should all be reflecting and praying for our country and praying for unity. I mean, it is unimaginable. It is something that is not only worth condemnation from all religious leaders, political leaders, civil society, media, but it is worth having serious action taken, because we cannot continue to condone such.
Sidi, let me ask this question. So what is being seen across the divide, be it Red or be it SLPP, both parties, I mean, some members, very high-ranking members of these parties, have been accused of what you are accusing Gentle of. What would be the pathway to having a national, a nation that speaks to peace, national cohesion, and tranquility as we head towards the June 24th polls? Because accusing Gentle of making tribal and religious rhetorics that threaten the peace, there are concerns also of against members of the APC who had done that, who people said had created some serious concerns around the peace. Former mayor have mentioned that. So how do we deal with all of these now?
I mean, this is where I always talk about the insincerity on the part of even us, the citizenry. I mean, you have to look at the gravity of the statement. The mayor said something about Bua this year, and we received condemnations from all over, from the Office of National Security, from the PPRC, from civil societies. And then we've had statements, even before Gentle statements. We had statements from the First Lady, for example, telling people in the Eastern region not to allow APC to have offices in the East. We have statements from the President saying he cannot guarantee the security of every Sierra Leonean because he does not have enough police and military, so he's left the security of the people in the East in their own hands. They have the right to protect themselves. We've had all of these statements, and we've not had any condemnation. And now Gentle statement, and people are trying to justify his statements by bringing in statements that have been made previously. Look, I've always emphasized it. As long as we continue to think that when it is done by a certain set of people, it is okay, and when it is done by another set, it is not okay, we are never going to be able to solve these problems. We have to treat these problems with the seriousness they deserve, Samuel. We have the laws and the PPRC Act. The new acts are very clear as to, the consequences that political parties are supposed to face when such hate speeches are made. And like I stated, the ONS and the PPRC have been calling us to meetings repeatedly the past 2 weeks just to address these issues. So if we continue to see statements being still made by people in governance and by people aspiring to hold positions as serious as the mayor or position of this city, the capital of Freetown, and then we're trying to justify, oh, that somebody has made it before, so it's okay. I don't think we'll get to the bottom of it, and I think it will only continue to create more tension. And the danger is, Samuel, I have never in my entire life practicing politics, I have never had any politician bring religion into our politics in the way I heard Jane to do. You know,
so that begs the question, Sidi. That begs the question. I mean, this gloomy picture you're painting of the statement of Gentile, how worrisome and how threatening is it to the peace and tranquility of the nation?
It is troubling. It is worrisome. We all know how, you know, dangerous religious tensions or religious crises can become, to a point that you even, you know, trying to draw the issue of jihad into, you know, somebody, you know, not supporting a Muslim or, you know, and supporting a Christian in our politics. No. I mean, that is over the top, Samuel, and we wholeheartedly condemn it, and we hope that, you know, people will not try to justify this by making rhetorics and bringing in, you know, statements that have been made that are not even close to the kind of gravity that the statements of Gentile really do have. And I really hope the institutions will treat this matter seriously, because if they don't, then it makes no sense for them to continue calling political parties, you know, to have dialogue or to even discuss peace and national cohesion. Because then, if the sincerity is lacking, what's the point of us continue to have such conversation? You know,
Generally,
it is frustrating.
Generally, Sidi, what does the APC make of the current state of affairs with regards security? I know the Office of National Security banned the use of marshals, which the APC, for example, had, some SLPP had, and the security is very paramount for every citizen of the state. So what does the APC make of security and the state of peace ahead of the June 24th polls?
I mean, when you look at the chronology of events that have happened lately, from the tours of the president and his wife and the statements that they are making, like, for example, we in the APC stopped having marshals the moment the PPRC and ONS said we should not have marshals. We stopped long since. Of course, we have protocol officers, but no marshals. And now that we have a situation wherein people are trying to bring religious divide, tribal divide, and we have a situation where the president is telling us on the campaign that he cannot guarantee us security because he doesn't think he has enough military and police to be able to protect all of us, and that we have the right to protect ourselves. How will that speak to us not having marshals? How would that speak to us not putting our own security measures in place? It is troubling, Samuel. I mean, this is coming from the president.
Sidi, isn't that been the complaint over time, that the police do not have the human resource to police every Sierra Leonean? Even I mean, these were talks, these were propositions advanced even when the APC was in power. So why is this now a concern that the president is saying the truth?
Yeah, it is coming from the president. And in the end of that speech, you know what happened? They shouted, Kamajo Hoye, RUF Hoye. You have to understand that. The undertone. So you have to look at the intent of the statements being made. So as somebody in opposition, your wife has said we should not be allowed to have offices in certain area because they think, you know, we are not supporting a certain tribe. And then you, my commander-in-chief, my president, the fountain of honor that is responsible for my security, saying you cannot guarantee me and that certain people have the right to protect themselves. And in the end, I hear people in your presence shouting Kamajo Oye, when we know we no longer have Kamajos in this country. Come on, Samuel. Come on, Samuel.
How committed is the APC to peace, City?
Samuel, we have always been committed to peace, and we have demonstrated that in these 5 years of being in opposition. So many have happened to our party that if we were not committed to peace, this country would have been in chaos over and over again. But throughout the harassments, the intimidations, the torture that we have faced as a political party, that our membership, our people in our party have faced, we have remained calm, and we have kept our supporters calm. Even today, when we put out the press release on Gentle Statement, we called on the nation to remain calm, to remain peaceful, and to be law-abiding. And that has always been our position. These are the things that we have always called for, and we remain committed to that. But what we will not also do is to allow our membership, our supporters, and the people of this country to be cowed into not taking part on the democratic process. We will not do that. We will not allow them to be intimidated. We will not allow them to be scared away from taking part in the democratic process. If the state cannot guarantee us our security, we'll have to ensure we put our own security measures in place to keep us safe, our membership safe, and our supporters safe. That I can guarantee you.
What would, City, before you leave us, would want you to send a message to your supporters, your sympathizers, people who are with the APC to remain peaceful and calm as weird to the June polls?
I am going beyond that. I'm speaking to this nation, those who love Sierra Leone, to know and understand that it is us who call for democracy. And our democracy is multi-party democracy, one that allows political parties to exist. And people, citizens who qualify under the Constitution have the right to contest for any position that they qualify for. Let us not allow desperate politicians to divide us along tribal lines, to divide us along religious lines. We are the most religious, tolerant country in the world, for which every other nation admires us for. We have intertribal relations, we have intertribal marriages, and even our settlements are intertribal. We have lived peacefully, side by side, along one another, getting along. So let us not allow desperate politicians who have no message of hope for us to divide us. For us in the APC, we will continue to call on this nation to remain calm and peaceful, to remain law-abiding, but to also be fearless in taking part in the democratic process. It is our right to support who we want to support which political party we want to support, and to fully participate by voting in the leaders that we want to lead us. Let us not let anyone intimidate us into staying away. This country will go into a peaceful, free, fair, transparent elections, and we will ensure that the people of Sierra Leone elect the leaders that they want. Nothing and no one is going to stop that.
Thank you.
But we will continue to call on our supporters and our membership to be law-abiding, and we will call on all religious leaders, political leaders, and civil society organizations to come out strongly and condemn the statements of Gentle, as well as statements made by any figure that tend to divide us on tribal and religious lines. APC will remain committed to peace and national cohesion.
Thank you very much, Sidi Yaya Tunis, National Publicity Secretary of the Opposition All People's Congress Party. Quickly, I'm going to allow Imran to respond to Sidi's comments.
Well, firstly, I haven't heard those comments made by Gentle yet. So that is something I'm not going to comment on. But I feel I was taken aback, right, when he referenced His Excellency the President, right, on the issue of police forces not being able to police every single community, right? And somehow he has interpreted that to mean that it's going to be free for all, right? We know, I gave you the statistics about judges to citizens. Yeah, the ideal figure is 1 to 33,000. Right, that's the African baseline. Right, in Europe it's completely different. So for the police, in terms of how much police do you need to police a certain community, we're still a long way to go as a nation anyway. That's just the fact of it. So His Excellency the President, right, if he were to say, look, we do not have enough police officers to police every single community, that should be understood in the right context, full stop, right? It doesn't now mean it's going to be a free-for-all. We know that the police, right, will do their utmost to make sure that every community is safe. That is why we now have judges located in each and every single district. It is to make sure that we bring, right, people to court, or you can take private summons and take people to court and have matters redressed. Getting to elections, we also know that there's always a possibility of a MACP, not so, which, I mean, based on the security assessments and threats and all the rest of it, that can require, I mean, a different type of intervention. And so I think this is an advice I have given to CD and every single member in the national executive of the APC. Please come forward. Let us understand what your policies really are. Because as it is at every given moment, any opportunity you give to CD or anyone else in the APC, all they do is chase shadows. It is one fear-mongering exercise to another fear-mongering exercise, to something completely removed and not connected in any way to real and germane issues that people should be concerned about. They are just hoping that they can peddle enough fear into this society, just enough, so that they might be able to win a vote, right, or win an election. That's not how politics work. It's about plans, it's about policies. What are the alternatives to the real issues that we are addressing as a government, and that His Excellency the President has committed himself to, right, for the first 5 years, and is looking forward to, I mean, when he gets a second term as President of the Republic of Senegal. So, I mean, this has to be far more serious than CD is pretending it to be, yeah? Let us come back to germane issues, issues of national security, yeah, as we lead to the elections. Those commitments that he's saying that on behalf of his party that they have made and will continue to make to PPIC and other security institutions as we approach the elections. I mean, that's a commitment I can make on behalf of my party, on behalf of the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, and on behalf of government, that we are committed in ensuring that we have a peaceful elections. Nothing more, nothing less. And you know, it's interesting. When he was referring to Gento, he alluded to, it's the first time an aspirant is using a religious. You know, firstly, we need to be thankful as a country, yeah, that never in the history of this country have we been able, never in the history of this country have we had a reason, that's the exact word I was looking for, have we had a reason to point to religious conflict and religious tension, right? We are a peaceful society. That is not who we are, I mean, as a nation, right? It might be for any other reason. It has never been about, about religion. So I remember in 2018, I think it was Musa Tawali and his party, what was it called? Allies One, Clearly. So it is clearly not the first time. I'm not saying, assuming, right, someone, for whatever reason, were to talk about religion is right, right? Because that's not, maybe that's not the way to go. Right? And I'm not sure whether anybody would deliberately seek to stoke religious tension, regardless of where you come from, right? And regardless of your party political persuasion. No one would seek to stoke, right, religious tensions in this country. So let us keep things in perspective. Let us not overhype them, yeah? And let us do things in moderation. That would be my advice to Sidi. Okay. I mean, he's a brother. Calm down, right? Let us come and talk about the real issues about the economy, on infrastructure, on healthcare, on education, right? Because that is what people, right, would use to form an opinion as to who to vote for. And that is what we're doing. For the most part, 99.9% of the time, we are here talking about issues. Let them get real. They don't have any issues to talk about, interestingly enough. Now that make them go defend. Now what you can call Jegman points. From term to term, every time you call them a Jegman point, and then we now take elections.
All right. Let me bring in Solomon. Solomon, now we're trying to round off the conversation. How do we lay the tracks that would lead to us having an election that would see every player? I mean, it's almost impossible to have every player satisfied or be okay in politics, especially during periods like elections. But how do we ensure that the bodies set to look at all of the things those bodies act independently and in the manner for which they were set up?
Yes, I'm happy that we ended that way, that those structures established to ensure compliance, and that should cut across. I mean, we have seen issues like that, from the PPRC, and to me, that's the way to go. We have seen how they have punished the APC for a breach. We have seen how they have written to the SFPP, telling them that what some sections of the membership did was not in tune with the way it's against the policies of PPRC. So we want to see more of that in terms of compliance to really ensure that it cuts across. Again, we from the human rights angle, we are saying that human rights or rights generally are never absolute. Every right goes with its corresponding responsibilities. So people should learn to be law-abiding. I mean, to us, that's the watchword. Ensure that we abide by the laws, we maintain the peace, because our rights are only guaranteed when there is peace. So that's how I will end my own talk.
Just maybe finally, this report of yours, where do you put it on the table? What description would you want to give to it?
Well, the report is a wake-up call for us to know that all is not well, and that what happened on August 10 send a message that we have not learned from history and we are repeating.
Is that conclusive?
It is, because the level of violence we saw sends out the message that all is not well, and that we want to see the security force, especially the police, to be more professional in the way they manage crisis moving forward.
You know, the other day, it's a known fact that it takes two to tango. And if you just get my side and forget about the other side, it means it's bias in itself. And so how would we then, as citizens, who on a normal day look, well, even us, the media, we look forward to institutions like Amnesty, other independent and credible institutions, when they put out things, for us, it's food on the table. So whether it's delicious or not depends on the findings. So you leave, the report leaves many rooms for doubt and all of that, because people think, oh, it's one-sided already. How do we then feed from this, Solomon? So just, I mean, for the purpose of credibility and looking at Amnesty's reputation, is this something you would want to revisit?
Well, not really revisiting. The point is, we are missing the point.
Go ahead.
Look at the substance of the report, the issues raised. Okay, you can say it's not.
Don't talk about substance now.
By the affected people, those concerned.
Right.
One, we outrightly condemn the violence and the killing.
Yes.
That forms the basis. Two, the nature of the way the violence took place.
Right.
It's a cause for concern. The police, the way they handle the thing, is a cause for concern. So there are a series of issues, even body on the special committee. So you see that these are like wake-up calls for us to know. Now we are happy that from you that the report has been finalized and submitted. That's fine. This is what the report is. The report is pushing for. We want to see action, and so if we have a report from the special committee, fine. Perhaps it's going to address some of the issues raised in the Amnesty report.
Can I just say very quickly, Samuel? I would be the first person to come to the rescue of Amnesty International, right? And that is what I'm going to do. I remember back on the 18th of August, that was a students' demonstration way back in 1997, right? I was one of those students who were arrested and detained because we demonstrated against AFRC at the time. And we all know the story. The rest is history. I was not alone. Suleiman Banja, Tijansi, and many others, right? Amnesty International captured it, right? Rightly so. And that helped, right, for us to be released at that point in time. So here's my point, Samuel. We all have bad days at the office, yeah? Even you, in the job that you do, right? You come to work someday and your job is to actually interview people. But sometimes you leave, right? Just the mental side to you gives you a feel that this was not one of my best performance, yeah? And you go back looking. It does not mean Samuel is not a bad person or not being woke, right? So this for me is one of those moments, yeah? They got this one wrong. I mean, this is a howler, very tardy. Let us accept it and move on. Amnesty International, that I know, with its head office somewhere in the world, right, have a very reputable, right? They're a very reputable institution, and people rely on them the world over to capture issues and bring them to the fore. And that's how it's going to remain. On this one, let us not dwell on it for too long, because it could have been better, right? That's just, the fact of it. But Lord left farm. It don't done.
All right.
Let us look forward. I'm sure there's also, for every report that goes out, for every work that they do, right? They have those internal mechanisms and structures. They'll go back and say, what can we do to make things better? And this definitely would be a learning exercise for them, right? As to how to make sure other reports do not fall under similar criticisms.
I see Solomon
But
wants
they're a
to.
brilliant
Yes.
organization. 100%.
Let us have it. Or let me correct this.
Yeah.
This is not really a report. It's a press release.
Okay.
It's different from a report.
Okay.
This is just to capture the issue quickly and perhaps release it. A report is in depth, like the annual report we will be launching on Tuesday. You read that and you see the issues captured. So when you see the tool, then you know what we are really talking about.
But by the way, the work of the committee is done. I can also confirm, like you said, that is going to be made public, right? And it is very thorough and detailed.
Can I get a copy?
We did not want to, the committee did not want to come under the same criticism like we're experiencing with Amnesty International. They did what you would call a deep dive, yeah, not on the surface, right? So you're going to get a very bulky, voluminous report that's going to come out and be made public, and then we'll all have the opportunity to understand exactly what happened and what are the recommendations.
Can you promise me a copy?
Philip.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I'll bring it to you.
I'm sure it will be out.
I'll bring it to you.
Well, Philip, let me ask you, what are the mechanisms currently in place to prevent conflict as we head to the
Well, with regards to what we have on the table right now is the election preparedness action plan. We have an action plan for that. And, we are working on that is towards June 2024 and even beyond. We are planning to set up a situation room, which is not only going towards as election comes, but even after. That is permanent. So we are working on that, and that will lead to the training of various stakeholders, peace monitors. The commissioners has now have peace monitors all over the country. Who will be there to monitor the situation. They will have this double function, not only to monitor, but also to preach the message. And we also, as a commission, intend to engage political party representatives. We also intend to engage parliamentarians as elections approach. So there is a lot, actually, a package of activities going on in this area. And the executive secretary is actually always engaging those institutions like PPRC.
Because I was just going to ask, your job now, in order for you to achieve your mandate, you have to be very collaborative.
Exactly.
And coordinate with other institutions.
Yes.
So how is that effort?
Yes. What we are doing, actually, we already signed MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, long ago with the various institutions, such as ECSL, such as PPRC. We believe we cannot work in isolation. It's only when we really collaborate our efforts that we can really work on, promote peace. I mean, mind you, peace cannot be manufactured in a factory. It is human beings who have to come together, who must be ready, who are ready, who should be ready, to say, well, we want to work on peace. And this brings me exactly to the point, after hearing those, the two colleagues,
politicians.
Yes, the politicians, Sila and Sidi, that I'm also personally optimistic that with all the fears we are now having, that this will come and pass. That is, the euphoria will come. We saw it in 1968, 67, 68. We saw it in 73. We saw it in 77, until I left this country in 82, and starting from 96, we saw developments there. So I want to believe, of course, the tensions are high now, but the people in the end would want to maintain the peace. They wouldn't like to go back to the 1990s, neither the North, nor the South, nor East, nor West, yeah? But of course, some effort is needed, especially from the politicians. And that is why I'm happy this evening to hear even from Tunis, their commitment, the commitment of his party, or to hear from Sila, the commitment of his, when it comes to, working on how the election, process should go. Yeah. So I want to believe it's a process. It needs some time, and even this election, politics here, based on what I experienced elsewhere, it will take some time until we really get there where where the West is expecting us, because we usually dance to their tune. What our advice here is, we should try to Africanize our own politics. We are going at a level where a majority of the people are not educated enough to understand what is going on. So it will take some time, and I want to believe even with the
Hey, just a second. Say for subscribe now free. Plenty people who they watch here, they know they subscribe because someone feel say for subscribe, they need for pay money. If you not be known for no say for subscribe now free. But why for subscribe? If for subscribe for three main reasons. Number one, you go be the first person we go know whenever we come on live. Number two, you go be the first person we go know whenever we upload new video. And number three, you go be the first person for comments, like or share. And the last one for support we, so we go bring kind of content here regularly to you. So you see how it beneficial to you. So if you don't subscribe it, what you do with? I for subscribe to TPP Leone now. And before I forget, not forget for click the notification bell so you go get all the notification. Bam.
Yes, so Fambo, now so Sierra Leone decide come to an end from AYV. Hopefully on Sunday next week we'll share the feed tonight again for ourselves get the updates where they come from different experts there. But this is Sierra Leone because based on the takeaway we see, it seems as if the man from Amnesty is not grounded absolutely in speaking to the media. I not say not qualify for work for Amnesty International. It's just that some people they not get the they not get that level of training, or sometimes they not get the they don't get a yeah, sorry, Fambule. They try to adjust some issues there behind the scenes, some technical issue. But anyway, back. So what are the time for talk is, some people are unable to talk to people, to crowd. If you see 5-10 people that don't present in a particular setting, or is aware, for say they talk to people where a large amount of people or a crowd or what have you, or even an interview where they expect a lot of people and for listener, some people they lost the pace. They lost the pace, they lost the tempo, they're unable to control their words, they get stuff right. It's just natural to a lot of people. Public speaking, now one of the fiercest, a lot of people ranging from people with high level of education, it no matter, you understand. And in fact, according to statistics, a lot of people consider as one of the worst fear, public speaking. So I think the man at the studio will represent Amnesty, when a Solomon, you see, say like, you know, Sila Bullion, too much. Sila na man went on there in politics. You know how to handle the crowd. You know how to handle a reporter there. You know how to handle moderator there. You don't then na TV station. You don't then a radio station. It is well equipped in terms of expertise and experience, and that make you able to bully this guy. If you check around, the Amnesty guy not even able to defend your report. The Amnesty guy not able to even defend your report. He end up switch to the tune of in the Sila. You know, it's so pathetic. And this now like a course. These are the tactics this will make this government they become unpopular, because whenever these credible institutions were out of the over the ages, and they will rely on for tell we facts, and then people and believing. Whenever them people pull a report against the government they always get their own counter reports and will come, then blast, then distort the whole thing, and it's wrong. And people, if somebody in a studio, he talk against the government, they get problem. If not, they follow Professor Jimmy. Professor Jimmy just 3 weeks ago was on the same program when he cleared the record, say, Madabio is not the father of democracy. Let me say it once and for all. The moment he finished that show, he did with the Minister of Information when Mohamed Soare, after that program day, we just say the University of Sierra Leone don't fire Jimmy. Then put some absurd reasons there where the professor himself put some it is gone to actually because of the manner in which they fire, but at the same time accept her in good faith. But the point why they make here is this is the problem of SLPP, the current government, in the sense that they never allow the institutions and work for them. No institution, no, they were credible if you talk against them. No institution. Whenever, look at the defeat, when defeat be pull a report, then distort them. When EU follow-up report on the judiciary, the NEC, the PPRs and the police, the government of Salon pull and then blast the EU report. When this other report come up from, yes, the UN human reports come up back, then distorts the fact back, then Senator through any reports over any credible institution will pull reports against the government they debunk them. Absolutely. In fact, that make you see that they even disband. Technically, when you look at, they don't disband the auditor general. You know, because if you go take puppets, people away will just control and tell and say is that you know the function, the office, the audit service, not the function again. It's done. For more than kick Mrs. Lara Pierce-Taylor out of it, you see the outcome. The reporter come out, it's just too childish. They exclude the vice presidents, the presidents, the first lady. You're not mentioned in the report. They say they don't meet the threshold. That's not the argument. But back then, it was the same government, President Julius Marabio, will be tailored back in then forgive them impress. In other words, impress without monitor. Then for allow the president with a blank check. If you know they follow the social media, if you know they follow we'll come up with our program there. I think that was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Government, President Julius Mara Biobi wants a blank check, amnesty, impressed. In fact, it was already passed in Parliament. Can you imagine? It was already waiting for grant the president, the vice president, and the Speaker of Parliament blank check for without even any accountability not for day. So what I try for point here is, it seems as if this government, any institution, we're not tuned, we're not go align with them, definitely then they say you're not credible and they say you need to do more. We don't see many. So you see, it's really dangerous. I mean, with democracy, it on fire. It really in a resuscitation. A better way people then become more active now. They put pressure on them. If this particular government gets another 5 years, maybe sometimes we're not going to talk safe again. No, the reason why they say so, because they will use all means available at their disposal for unblock people. You know, almost a radio station that don't block. You know how much bloggers that don't block. You know how much people that don't threaten. We na me what they talk to. Me name then at airport. Me face day, me picture day. You know how much people are not subjected to harassment costs. Forget that me, for me, costs, I know they say nothing again. Don't cost we take. Even way they put facts, you they talk it through with facts, not just an opinion you they give. You put on someone, they still they feel offended, and then what do they end up with? Because of a level of understanding, not that maturity, intellectual ability for argue with points, what do they resort to? Mami costs, you know, and it's bad. Democracy for be a free space for all Sierra Leoneans and for all citizens and for participate and make their inputs. Criticizing the government constructively. Now, one way you say they support the government for they do the right thing. But we get a government today, they're not take criticism, whether it's constructive or not constructive. Criticism is not for them. You should not criticize them. And just need praise singers, yes men, and it's not true. I mean, I know it's just too funny. But anyway, family, we go Tapia. We'll come back most probably tomorrow with a very interesting program. We understand a message where the president give when a very damning message where I believe say we don't need from nobody that message. The president, they expect much from us. We'll not be allowed to talk that today, but the president don't talk something where really worrisome. So tomorrow, on a journey now. What we think will be the time? Probably around 6 o'clock. Around 6 o'clock, we'll come up with that program day. Then I can listen. We get the audio where the president said the talk. Then I can listen with the president the talk. Now maybe we take few texts. This one they come up from Augustine. Hello to all my people. Augustine, welcome, guys. If you're not the first time this for Jeremy, don't forget to subscribe and share the platform for me as well. Click on the like button. This is not free. Would they put too much time, research, money, everything for at least then say I come to now. Would I ask you now for one thing? Just subscribe for we no more. At least if you subscribe, I saw the algorithm they favor we, and I saw YouTube they continue to keep we on their network. This one they come up from Asantui. To be honest, these guys on this program are not serious. They are just all right. No, I'm not sit down. We don't want to use any obscene language anyway. Bio must go by any means necessary. We people then left for say we left we case to God. Enough with that. I say power to the people. All right, so Fambule, now that we get time for anyway. Sorry if I'm not able to read the other text there. We'll come back tomorrow, yeah, with a very important program. Until then, of course, I know my name, Mohammed. Bye-bye.
Hey, just a second. You know, say for subscribe now free. Plenty people who they watch here, they know they subscribe because someone feel say for subscribe, they need for pay money. If you not be known for no say for subscribe now free. But why for subscribe? If for subscribe for three main reasons. Number one, you go be the first person we go know whenever we come on live. Number 2, you go be the first person we go know whenever we upload new video. And number 3, you go be the first person for comments, like or share. And the last one for support we, so we go bring kind of content here regularly to you. So you see how it's beneficial to you. So if you don't subscribe it, what you do it? I for subscribe to TPP Leone now. And before I forget, not forget for click the notification bell so you go get all the notification. Bam.
We country slow, we want for no. Why not they bro? Yeah, hey bo, we want for no, we want for no. Wait make we country they go slow. Wait making all they grow. Yes, slow, I can for sure. Yes, I can for sure them thing them way they make we know they grow. Then now we they die pampo. If I they try for go before. I beg, do ya not make us slow? No. If I try for raise the tempo, do ya not make them low? Yes, so if I try for go before, I beg, do ya not make us slow? No. If I try for raise the tempo, do ya not make them low? Yes, so before they do them thing now we go make we gladdy, thing now we go make we happy, thing now we go make we country laddie daddy. So we go live in unity. Yes, so before they do them thing now we go make we gladdy, thing now we go make we happy, thing now we go make we country laddie daddy. So we go live in harmony. Yes, so don't we for do them thing now we go make we smarter, thing now we go make we stronger, thing now we go make we nation last much longer. So we life them go better. Yes, so but we for left them thing now we go make we scatter, thing now we go bring palava, thing now we go make we nation well Panambara, make we people scatter.
Scanty you talk about.
Thing them like half flavor plaba, political party wahala. Thing them we go make we agba, them put we country pan yakba. Sing along say hey bo.